Few missions matter more than helping people live healthier, happier, and longer lives. But turning that mission into reality at scale is one of the greatest challenges of our time. In this podcast, I speak with the people who are taking that challenge head on, health entrepreneurs who have dedicated their personal and professional lives to creating maximal impact, the true impact junkies. My name is Daniel. Join me as I speak with them about the stories behind the impact, the wins, the losses, the challenges, and the breakthroughs, with the hope of inspiring many more people to join the mission and the health revolution. Today's guest is Clevenger from Iron Sanctuary, a man who is determined to change the world one rep at a time. Welcome to Impact Junkies. Well, Kevin, welcome.
Thank you.
Iron Sanctuary, wearing your own merch right there. Yeah. It's looking amazing,
it's
man.
Clothing brand, not merch. Actually.
No, sorry, brand. Messed up from the start.
All good.
But it looks good, man.
Thank you.
Amazing to have you here.
It's good to be here.
In the studio and in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
How are you experiencing it so far?
A little bit jet lagged.
Yeah.
It's like 2:00 in the morning where I'm from right now, or something like that. Yeah. So, it's cool. I love it. It's a really, really pretty area. I mean, I experienced some of it yesterday. Obviously, did a little bit of shopping But yeah, it's nice out here.
Nice, man. Good to have you here.
No Diet Dr. Pepper, but it is what it is.
The things you'll miss.
Yeah.
You'll get it when you get back home. Kevin, you have such a presence of both as a person when you're physically present, but also an online presence with a massive voice and some messages, which I really look forward to diving into the origin of and what it is that you actually communicate. But I think where I'd like to start is just to say that so far, I only have data from around 3 years of online coaching, but within that time, you have already had an enormous impact on the clients that you serve. And to give you a bit of a glimpse into that, of course, you're heading into the gym and your clients are too. They've already tracked just around 70,000 workouts delivered through Iron Sanctuary coaching. That's a lot of iron being moved a lot of iron out there. And they track a lot of habits as well. 84,000 habits tracked, and habits that are actually like core to, let's say, well-being, both physically and mentally. Sleep, cardio, hydration, the whole base of the pyramid, just to show that you're actually creating so much change out there for a lot of people, both physically and mentally. What are your thoughts when you hear some
Those are insane numbers.
Yeah.
It's cool to actually hear that, you know?
Yeah. Had you imagined when you got into this that this was kind of the scale of influence that you'd be having?
No, not even close. I mean, I had, 1 or 2 clients when I started with Lenus, that I brought onto the platform. So, like, to get to this point 3 years later, those are insane numbers. Yeah. Like, hundreds, if not thousands of clients, obviously, but like 84,000, that's 70,000 workouts.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of workouts.
That's a lot of workouts.
Exactly. I think, we spoke about an online presence and most people looking from the outside, we'd see, well, potentially at one point, a lot of glitter.
Yeah, a lot of glitter.
Workouts, trophies, and following the brand.
Stuff.
But there's also a pretty strong core message. What would you say is part of that core message that you've always communicated?
I mean, just one rep at a time, obviously, would be the core message. Mm-hmm. That, like, pretty much anything that you want to accomplish, you can accomplish if you're able to break it down into smaller steps. Like, that's something I believed for a long time, even before I figured out, like, the connection with, like, one rep at a time, especially, like, in recovery, the concept of one day at a time. Like, everything seems so overwhelming, but if you figure out that you can just break it down into something that you can do on a daily basis or an hourly basis or even on, like, a minute-by-minute basis, that whatever it is that you want to achieve, whether it's like in the gym, outside of the gym, like in your life, like if someone else has accomplished that thing, then it's not impossible and you can do it.
And it's doable.
Yeah.
Hey guys, just a quick interruption from me because I have something to ask of you. If you enjoy these conversations or maybe they even inspire you, please follow, subscribe, or rate the show wherever you're listening or watching. It would mean so much to me. And more importantly, it will help us bring even more impactful stories to more people. All right, let's get back to it. And you've had a lot of things to overcome and take one step at a time, which I'd love to get into. But first, before, let's say you had to overcome your first larger ordeals one step at a time, I'd like to go to the time just before that.
Yeah.
Tell me about what that was like for you, or where
Which time before that?
I guess we're talking young Kevin.
Young Kevin
Must be, right? Yeah. Where
Yeah.
did you grow up, and what was the story?
So I grew up. I grew up primarily in Washington State.
Mm.
My dad was military, so we lived in Washington State, and we moved to Hawaii. We were in Hawaii for 6 years, and then from Hawaii we moved back to Washington. I pretty much kind of grew up there. Two sisters. Dad deployed a lot, so it was me and my mom and my two sisters quite a bit. And growing up, I never really quite felt like I fit in anywhere.
How so?
I always felt like I was not like there. You know what I mean? Like I was there. I was, I had a couple friends. I was picked on a bunch, obviously bullied a little bit. And I never really felt like I quite belonged. And I used to tell myself, well, it's because like we just moved here. Like people don't. And then, 10 years later, I'm like, why do I still feel like this?
That
Like,
feeling just kept going.
yeah, I had a couple friends and we were close and everything. Actually, one of those friends that I met in fourth grade, we're still actually really good friends. How we're like 15, 20 years or something like that at this point. Just like I would see all my friends, not my friends, but like all my peers, like doing things and like have all these friends and just seem like they felt so comfortable just being themselves. And I never felt like I could truly be myself. The times where I sort of let myself kind of be myself ended up badly,
Why?
picked on a lot. Well, because my thing, like, I've always liked to try and make people laugh, right? Like, I'm super big on like reading situations and knowing exactly what to say after something happens to make everyone laugh.
Right.
I don't know what it is. It's just like it's a timing thing, and I've been that way for a long time, and I always enjoyed doing that. It was something I was really good at. I wasn't very good at it at the beginning. I was still learning that part of me. Like I think it's just this intrusive thought thing. I'm like, I have to say this thing,
Right.
and then I would say it, and then more often than not, it would get a negative response because I didn't know what I was doing at first.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't read the room right. And then so eventually it kind of got to the point where I just stopped doing that. And I was like keeping this part of myself hidden for a long time because I didn't like the negative response. Like I felt ostracized just because people were like, no, don't hang around that guy. He's weird. Right. And so like growing up, I didn't really quite feel like I belonged like with my peers, essentially.
Right. So did you find a place of belonging at any point in that?
A little bit, when I was like 14 or 15 years old, I think it was like 13, I joined a wrestling team and still a little bit of the outsider there on the wrestling team. Cause regardless of the fact I was on the wrestling team, some of the people that were on that team were also people that like picked on me or bullied me or whatever. But then I kind of started getting into lifting weights. I got the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding book from my grandfather.
A classic.
And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, one of the things that people picked on me a lot for, I was very small.
Okay.
I'm short, obviously, which doesn't help, right? But I was like 120 pounds. And that was always something that I was really insecure about. And so I started lifting weights. I was working a job bagging groceries, and so I had enough money to get a gym membership. And I ordered my first jug of creatine monohydrate from Amazon, and I hid it from my parents because I didn't want them to think I was taking steroids or anything.
It'll probably be misunderstood.
Yeah, and so I started working out in my bedroom, and I got
home workouts.
Yeah, I got a set of weights from a garage sale, and I started working out in my bedroom, and through the wrestling team and working out, I started putting on a little bit of size, and then the same summer I broke a rib, which unfortunately started a chain of events that we'll talk about a little bit later. But through that year or so of wrestling and like working out, I got my first like gym membership basically after that first summer, and I started training. I would train at the Navy base where my dad worked because I had the military ID, and then put on a little bit more size. And then I remember the summer before my I think it was the summer before my junior year or the senior year, one of the two, I can't remember exactly when it was. I had a growth spurt, and all I did was eat and work out, and I put on like 30 pounds over the summer, and I came to school, and everyone's like, what the hell?
What happened? So that's like the first big transformation.
Yeah, it was my first physical transformation. And, with that came a little bit of an ego that I shouldn't
Mm,
have had, obviously, which, I put on a lot of sides thinking it would give me more respect and like people would like me, but it ended up making me like, I guess, worse in a sense
right.
because I was still the same like annoying kid. I just had
Just
muscle,
bigger now.
just bigger.
Yeah.
And, but over that year, I think it was my junior year, over the junior year, I like became friends with a couple other people who also went to the gym, and I was like, wow, this is like we're the same.
Mm,
We had the same things that we could talk about, the same interests. We bodybuilding.com and look at the forums and order our protein and our creatine and learn about different
right.
supplements and that was the first time in my entire life where I felt like I actually belonged somewhere. I felt
Mm,
comfortable there.
right.
And it wasn't until much later that I realized like how drastic that was for like how it changed my life. But at the time I just felt like I was home.
And felt better.
Yeah, I felt
Yeah.
way
So
better.
retrospectively, you found that okay, the environment of lifting weights, of betterment, and everything that came with it, that was actually a big change
Huge.
in your life.
Yeah.
You mentioned an injury that
Yeah.
changed the course of everything. What actually happened there?
So I was stupid. I was hanging out at my buddy's house, and at the time, I used to be able to do backflips off everything. Like I was very acrobatic,
Okay.
right? I could do flips off stuff, and I went snowboarding a lot, so I'd like spend a lot of time in the terrain park and doing all kinds of cool stuff, but I think it was the same summer I was like I learned that I could just backflip off stuff if it
Mm,
was high enough off the ground, and so we were hanging out. It was like 10 o'clock at night at his house, and his parents have a pond, and they have like this little dinghy boat
mhm,
that you could float around in the pond. And it was sitting on the ground, and because it was sloped in the front, like you'd stand on the front and
mm.
it would move up and down. And I was like, oh,
It's
I
like a
could
spring. I could do a
I could do a backflip
backflip.
off this. Well, one thing I forgot is that boats are wet.
Mm,
And the boat was wet, and I went to go do a backflip off of it, and I slipped, and I fell on the side of the boat, so like the little edge
yeah.
on my rib,
Wow.
and knocked the wind out of me, obviously. And I was staying the night at my buddy's house that night, and so I went inside. I'm like, oh, that sucked. I took some Tylenol, and then we went and played video games in his room, and we were playing video games for a little while. I'm like, God, this really hurts, but
Well, if
like
anyone's ever had a broken or a cracked rib, they know that it's quite painful, and just the
incredibly
anticipation of
painful.
a potential sneeze is
So here's what
is
happened. We were playing and it was probably like 4 or 5 hours after I did it. I didn't think anything was broken. Like the only other bone I had broken in my entire life was my femur when I was like 7 months old.
Mhm.
I rolled off my parents' bed
Okay.
and then it broke, right?
Nothing you remember either.
And no, and then but I don't remember that, right? And so like I had no experience with like a broken bone. And so we were playing video games and I sneezed and I almost blacked out.
Mhm.
I was the most pain I had ever experienced. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I called my mom and she lived like a mile down the hill. I called my mom and woke her up and she was mad. She's like, so why are you calling me? And I'm like, I need to go to the hospital. And in my family, there has been a little bit of a dramatic experience with quote unquote injuries
Okay.
with my sister.
Uh,
So something would happen and I need to go to the emergency room. She didn't go to the emergency room. Nothing was wrong, right?
Okay.
But it was this thing, right?
Right.
And so
They didn't believe that there was anything.
so they didn't believe. They're like, no. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure like I broke my ribs. And my mom was like, okay, I'll come get you because it's midnight at this point. And so she picks me up, takes me to the emergency room. They see the rib. It's starting to bruise really, really bad. And they prescribed me oxys. So they gave me an oxy. It was I think it was a 5 or 10 milligram oxy. That kicked in about a half hour later.
Mm.
And immediately my first thought was, I want to feel like this forever.
Wow.
It was like the best feeling I had ever experienced. This was like before I had even really gotten into lifting, like fully. I'd barely been doing it. And that definitely set a tone for way later. But yeah, and they prescribed me Percocets and I took them, for a couple of weeks
Yeah.
and then I was still in pain. And so
I'm
I had
curious
to
to
get
dive
more.
into that experience there because I've read this or heard this also mentioned multiple times that sometimes people who have a, let's say, a tendency towards addictions in some way often experience that first experience very differently to someone who doesn't.
Yeah,
Right? That feeling of, I want to feel like this all the
exactly.
time, or feeling at home in something. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot about addiction, obviously, later on when I went through treatment, but it's definitely genetic. I mean, it really is. If you have someone in your family that has a history of alcoholism or drug addiction, you are way more likely to have a drug addiction or alcoholism. Um, I don't know the exact science behind it, but it's just something with how like your brain chemistry is. I know a lot of people, the first time they took pain medication, they're like, "Oh, I hated that.
Yeah,
I didn't like
exactly.
feeling like that."
Yeah.
And then you have, people like me, obviously the first time I took it, I was like, I want to feel like this forever for the rest of my life. I'm like, that was the first instance in my entire life where I was like, oh my God, this is the best feeling ever.
Mm.
And it's funny because I have that conversation with people and they're like, that's weird. That's a weird way to think about it. Cause like, you have the mental like addiction part and then the physical addiction. The physical addiction is like your body needs it, right? Because you take it for a long enough period of time, you build up a tolerance to it, and then you stop taking it, and then you have withdrawal symptoms, and that's what stops a lot of people from stopping using it. And then the mental side of it is like not being able to stop using it, even though you know that it's like it's killing you, or it's like not great for you at all from like in all aspects, but that mental side of things is really where my like that's kind of what held me to it, because the physical addictions part, I didn't struggle with that until way later because I wasn't taking it every day. I was just something that I took when I could get access to it, and when I couldn't, I didn't. But I was always thinking about it like constantly.
All right, so you have this first experience and you're like, I want to feel like this all the time. But you're young. I mean,
Yeah,
you're 15 years
yeah.
old, and this is prescribed by a doctor.
A doctor, so yeah.
How long did you get it prescribed, and what did that lead to?
I had it prescribed for a couple of months. It was a couple of weeks. Like I had gotten one refill. Because broken ribs, you can't do anything you can't brace it, you can't wrap it. You wrap it, you could die of pneumonia because it's constricting, right? And so I had the prescription for a while, and I wasn't in pain anymore. Like after like a week, like it wasn't painful anymore, but I said it was because it meant that I kept getting drugs, right? And then when the prescription ran out, my mom had a surgery, and so immediately just started stealing her pain pills. And I wasn't taking them all the time. Like I would steal like a couple here and there and replace it with Tylenol because they looked similar.
Right.
And then I did that for quite a while. And then, in high school, you find someone who you could get drugs from, and I started buying pills from, someone at school, and I mean weed, and I started taking opiates before I started smoking weed.
Exactly, which is
It's not
a bit of an opposite gateway.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You can say,
yeah,
quite
I think.
different.
And what's funny too is I didn't really like smoking weed that much. No. I think the only time I really did is when I couldn't get pills or whatever, because I just wanted to feel altered. I didn't want to feel normal. Like I didn't want to be sober at all.
So at what point? Well, look, there's two questions in this. I guess looking back, at what point did this actually become an addiction? And is there a point where you thought yourself that it was becoming an addiction?
To answer the first question, I believe it started to become an addiction after I graduated high school. I was definitely an addiction before. But at the time I was like, I wasn't using it every day. Yeah. Actually, by my senior year, I was definitely using drugs every day. But it wasn't like I was getting prescriptions too.
Yeah.
Because
so kind of
through that was the hard part for me, is like through wrestling, and this led on until much later too, but I've had back issues for a long time. Like in high school, the sciatic nerve stuff, I've had back issues for a very long time, and like sciatic nerve pain is like you don't want to exist.
It's
it's so bad because nerve pain is just a completely different type of pain. And so, I'd get prescriptions, and then I would take the prescriptions, and in my head, I'm like, well, I need this because I'm in pain. And I think in high school, there was only like 1 or 2 times I got a prescription. But when I graduated high school, I remember working a job. I worked at a Walgreens, it was a pharmacy, and I would have to stand for long periods of time. and my back would flare up so badly because the shoes I had to wear. Just it was so uncomfortable that I would take shots of vodka or shots of whiskey before I went into work because it was so painful. I'm like, that's the only way that I can manage getting through the day.
So it sounds like you also built a habit of numbing pain.
Yeah, it was
Any type of pain.
It was sort of both. It was like an emotional pain, but also a physical pain. And then I found out like later on through working with doctors and like just my own processes is that I did have legitimate need for medication when I was a kid. And then with the back issues, I was in a severe amount of pain. Like it needed to be medicated because it's not normal to be in that much pain. But the other problem with that is I was also an addict.
Yes.
So I'm like I couldn't stop because if I stopped, I was going to be in pain. But also if I stopped, it means I was going to have to like experience life like without drugs. And that was like, I think that's what kept me using for such a long period of time and actually ended up leading to like the addiction becoming significantly more severe because I was in pain. I couldn't just stop taking it.
Right. So it was quite a potent combination to lead you on a
and then
path.
By the time, I graduated high school and, when I was for a good period of time, like I got really, really heavily back into like lifting and stuff. And I did my first bodybuilding competition when I was 19.
Okay, so this red thread of gym time from getting the encyclopedia of bodybuilding at, was it 14?
14, yeah.
Right? That kept going. So you were still relatively functional?
So I was
You're
functional.
And,
because I like through high school, I wasn't using like I used later on, right? Like I had to try and keep it as hidden as possible. But I'd get to school and I'd take pills and then throughout the day, I'd do I was not the greatest student, obviously, but do all my schoolwork and function. And then I'd go to the gym and then, I'd take a pill after the gym or whatever. And it was very like 1 or 2 a day type of thing because I hadn't really built up that physical addiction yet. So I could take it. It would last for a while and then it would wear off and then I wouldn't have withdrawal symptoms. And so it was easy for me to just, take a couple throughout the day or 1 or 2 throughout the day and then not take it. And then if I ran out, like if I couldn't buy any more, if I didn't have any prescription for more, then I'd be like, oh, that sucks. And then I'd, wait until I got another prescription. So like it hadn't reached a point in which it was unmanageable until, it was about a year after I graduated high school. That's when things went down really quickly.
I'd like to hear that. I just wanted to stop and hear one more thing that you mentioned before was that if you stopped using, you'd be in pain. But the other thing you mentioned is that then you'd have to feel life.
Yeah.
What was it you didn't want to feel specifically?
Both. I didn't want to feel both, but I think.
But what was it in life that was so hard to feel?
I always felt incredibly uncomfortable, like constantly like out of place. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. I didn't feel comfortable around people. I didn't feel like I could really be myself at all. I was just this part of myself that I had to hide. And some of it was confidence too. Like, I mean, drugs and alcohol lower your inhibitions, right? So you're able to like be yourself or an amplification of yourself, quote unquote, right? Without that feeling of embarrassment, without that feeling of like, what are people going to think of me? Because you're high, right? You're like, I feel great regardless. I don't really care how other people think of me because I feel great. And that part, like, what's weird is that I felt like when I was taking drugs that I was able to be my true self because I didn't have those other fears. I didn't have those reservations or any, like, also physical pain too. Like when you're in physical pain, it affects everything. You can't be yourself because you're just constantly thinking about pain. And so I was just stuck in this place where there was no escaping it.
Well, you didn't escape; it got worse. You mentioned.
Oh yeah.
So what kickstarted that?
So when I graduated high school, I definitely got really more heavily into lifting, and there was a pretty good period of time where I just stopped taking pills in general. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to take pills anymore. And then I got heavily into like bodybuilding, and so I started prep for my first show. It was January 1st. I remember it was 2011. Or 2012, January 1st, 2012. I got my plan from my coach. We just got back from snowboarding, and I was like, I'm gonna do a prep for the show, and everyone around me was like, "Oh my god, like really,
Why?
this kid's gonna be a bodybuilder." And I had put on a lot of size through high school. I remember in high school, there was one time where the one of the teachers was like, "What's something you want to accomplish like after you graduate?" And I was like, "I want to be a bodybuilder," and everyone laughed. I just remember that happening. So I did my first bodybuilding competition. I got first place at the very first one in the teen division of it was the Vancouver Natural, and I don't know if you know who Jeff Seed is.
No.
So Jeff Seed's really big influencer now, but at the time that was his first show too.
Okay.
And so him and I did the same show. He did the physique or whatever, men's bikini, and then I can say that because I've done physique. I've done physique now, but I did the teen division. I got first place. I got my first trophy. I was like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do.
So you said when you had said to people that you wanted to be a bodybuilder, it wasn't necessarily acknowledged that it was something worth pursuing.
Yeah.
But you overheard that and you did your own thing and you actually achieved it.
Yeah.
At the same time, you've kind of stopped using pills because something else is filling that
exactly
space. That sounds like a lot of like success for yourself. Did you acknowledge that at the time?
I did. Yeah, not at the time. I don't think I did at the time, but like later on I did acknowledge that. It took me a long time of working through everything for me to like look at my past and actually make connections there. But I think at the time I did realize that I had this other thing that kind of gave me not the same feeling that drugs did, but I felt home. You know, this is where I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to be doing. And I was surrounded by people who were also doing the same thing. And what I realized is that you got to be kind of a little messed up to do bodybuilding. You know what I mean? And so like for me, that's how I was. There was something off, right? And everyone else that I interacted with that did bodybuilding and weightlifting, something was off. It was something that each of these people had that was the same, even though like everyone was so different. You know, you had blue collar workers and, you know, white collar workers and, you know, men, women, like for every single person that you can possibly imagine in this one space, which is the gym. And then bodybuilding in general too, like people that you would never expect to see, you know, on a bodybuilding stage, all of a sudden they're like, oh wow, this is like, it was something that like drew us all to the sport and then just to weightlifting in general. And so I think having that as well as like, you know, being able to have this goal that I wanted to accomplish occupied enough of my time and mental space that I wasn't thinking about doing drugs. I was just like, this is what I want to be doing. And very quickly after that first show is like things kind of went downhill.
Why is that?
Well, I had injured my back.
Yeah.
And so that flared up again, and it got worse and worse. And then I don't think these two are directly correlated, obviously, but about 3 months after I did my first show as the Vancouver Natural, I started taking steroids. Took my first, you know, testosterone, started doing that. And, you know, being 19, I wasn't listening to a coach or anything. I was just taking what my buddy said to take and took a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have taken. I put on a significant amount of size. And the more size that I put on, the worse the pain was because there was more pressure on the nerve. And eventually I had to start taking prescriptions again to take care of the pain. And because of that, that basically kind of sparked everything back. Like I was taking steroids and going to the gym and training as hard as I possibly could. And then after I was done with the gym, I would take pain pills because I was in a lot of pain from throughout the day. And I wouldn't take it like, I was like, I'm controlling it, right? I would like, well, if I don't take it during these times during the day, then it's fine if I just take it at night so I can sleep. And then very quickly, like throughout the day, I was still in pain. I'm like, well, I can't take it and drive, so I'll just take it when I get to work. And then so I'd take pain pills when I got to work. And then eventually they'd wear off quicker throughout the day. And then it would just,
as you're getting more
over the course of, I think it was like 6 months, I went from only taking it at night to I was taking them all the time. I would take it in the morning when I woke up. I'd drive high to work. I'd be at work, high all day at work. And then eventually those drugs weren't enough. The prescriptions weren't enough. And so I had to get more and more. And eventually, you know, just the small pain pills that I was getting from the doctor, like I'd go through an entire month prescription in like a week, and I started buying drugs. I started buying pain pills because I couldn't
In
get the
addition to the
prescription.
prescription.
In addition to the prescriptions. And then eventually the prescriptions stopped because I was going to different doctors because one doctor wouldn't prescribe anymore. So I went to a different doctor, and the doctor would prescribe me pain pills. And then another doctor would prescribe me pain pills.
So you had this
I was
whole
doctor
system,
shopping.
System
That's what it
going
was.
on.
It was doctor shopping because at the time, all of the networks weren't connected together. They didn't have a database that connected all the prescriptions together. So you go to one hospital, they didn't have the same connections as the other hospital. And you go to different pharmacies to pick it up. So the pharmacies didn't catch on. And then they passed a law that connected everything together. So immediately all the prescriptions stopped.
That changes your
Oh,
premise
immediately all of them
totally.
stopped. And so the hundreds of pills that I was getting prescribed a month immediately went away. And I was like, shit. What am I going to do?
What do you turn to then?
And what's crazy is throughout this period of time, I was still going to the gym regularly.
Mm.
You know, I was.
That's quite a mix of things to do.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're in the gym doing bodybuilding, but still on
drugs.
On drugs.
Yeah.
And a lot of them.
A lot.
Seems,
A lot of drugs. Primarily opiates. I mean. And then, you know, I would drink if I ran out of pills or whatever for a little while, and then tried every drug that you could possibly think of throughout that period of time. But like the only one that I always went back to was opiates. And so through like once the prescriptions went away, I started buying a lot more. And so I would spend every dime that I had on pills. And at the time, I was engaged. Like I had a girlfriend that, you know, she and I had been together since I was 16. She was wholly against pills, and so I would like hide them from her.
Hide. It's hard. It's hard amount of consumption to hide.
Yeah, and then I had this bag, this green bag that it was this Under Armour bag that I had that would hold the prescriptions, and she knew about the prescriptions, but she didn't know that I was buying drugs, and so I just kept refilling the prescription bottle with the drugs that I would buy, and I would bring this bag with me everywhere. It had muscle relaxers and it had oxys in it. And I would just bring it with me to literally every place that I went. And, which thinking back, I'm like, that's a weird thing to do. That's like that's like a really weird thing to do. Like I have a fanny pack that I wear with me now that has like my keys and my wallet and stuff.
But not oxys.
You know, and then I have, you know, I got like some Tylenol and some stuff in there too, right? But like I would carry this green bag of oxys with me everywhere. And then it eventually got to the point where there was a raid on the this doggy daycare that was in my town, and the doggy daycare was literally just a front for pill business, basically.
If you knew, you knew,
right? And I would buy from someone who would pick up from there, and one day the raid happened, and then you couldn't find any pills. Like I was spending probably like $300 or $400 a day on pills. Because I ended up taking, it was like 30 milligram oxys multiple times a day, and then one of my buddies was like, "Hey, you can smoke these," and I'm like, "What?" And so immediate like change, like you smoke them off of foil, and the high is so different. It's like an immediate thing instead of like a slow build up, and so they started going a lot quicker because there's no time release, there's no slow metabolism of it. It's literally directly into your bloodstream.
I mean, this is a game changer in your trajectory of substance abuse.
Yeah.
How did this change your life?
I mean, it got worse from there too. Like just in general, from like how you mean how it changed my life from that point forward, or
yeah, because now you're basically smoking these pills, right? Which is a pretty different scenario, also in how it affects you, potentially, right?
Yeah.
So it's harder to hide, and I guess it's kind of spiraling.
It spiraled
spiraling
really quickly
downwards,
but
even further.
It still didn't like reach bottom until like another year after that. Because
what happened there?
Well, the raid happened. I couldn't get pills anymore, and a buddy of mine was like, "I can't get pills, but I can get heroin." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, I need something because I was having withdrawals. Like at this point, I was high all the time, so I was having physical withdrawals constantly. If I ran out, even if I didn't run out, I'd wake up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat because it would wear off, and then I'd be in full withdrawal.
You had to constantly.
And what's
Yeah.
crazy is even at the time, I still didn't consider myself a drug addict. I was like, no, I just take pills.
Yeah, I just have them here
I
in my
just
fanny
in my
pack.
fanny
It's
pack, in my
fine.
fanny pack. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
No, I just smoke them because it's quicker. Because whatever. But like, you have all these justifications.
Legitimizing.
You're
Yeah.
legitimate like justification, like in your head to like sort of make it not as bad as it is, and then I switched to heroin, and then everything went downhill really quickly.
Wow.
I mean, I surprisingly didn't lose my job, but my relationship fell apart. I was in severe debt. I was taking out credit cards and cashing out the credit cards and buying drugs. And I remember there was one time my dad had asked me to come over and like help him put together a stereo system. And I was like nodding off while helping him put together the stereo system. And so over the span of a year, like from the time I turned 21 until I was 22, everything went away. I was $60,000 in debt. I had no money. I had a job, surprisingly, and I couldn't pay my rent. I couldn't pay my half of my rent. So my girlfriend was paying, or my fiance was paying for all of the rent. I couldn't pay for food, and I was still under the impression no one knew.
You thought it was.
I was like,
somehow.
I'm just paying off all my debt. Like I would tell her, I don't have any money because I'm paying off all my debt.
Right.
And then one day, she looked at a bill or something like that, or like something in the mail, and she's like, "What is going on?"
Mm.
And then like I still had like the pill bottles and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, I think these things are the problem," even though clearly they weren't the problem anymore.
Oh, you'd moved on.
And then through that year is when I made both of the attempts on my life.
Wait. We can't just jump that quickly over that. I mean,
we can't. Yeah.
Clearly, you are hitting the lowest point.
Yeah.
As it seems, right? I mean, you're heavily indebted. You're losing relationships. You're losing basically. Somehow you still managed to have a job, but I mean, things are falling apart.
Yeah.
And is that what drove you to those types of thoughts? Or,
yeah,
or?
I didn't want to be here anymore because the only option for me was like I just had to be high all the time, and it was becoming so unmanageable that I was like, there's only one way out here. Because I tried to stop. Like I tried to stop a couple of times, but the withdrawals were so bad that I couldn't do it. I would go through withdrawals for like 24 hours. And then I can't do this anymore. Like it was so bad that I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I'd go pick up. And then I was like, oh my God, I feel fine now. And so it would just be these waves. And, the first time I had ran out and I didn't have any money. And I was like, I just don't want to be here anymore. And so I took a bunch of pills and I woke up the next day and I was like, what the hell? I didn't work. I was incredibly upset. But when I think about it, like with that particular situation, it's hard for me to like really. I know that if I had taken more, it would have. And I think at the time when I took them, I knew that if I took more, it would do it. And I think for me, it was more like if I woke up. Okay, if I didn't, then okay.
Okay.
I wouldn't like. It's hard for me to justify or like to say that is like a legitimate like I'm gonna kill myself. I think that was like the first situation in which I realized that it didn't matter if I died or if I lived. And so, talking to my therapist and a couple other people about it, they're like, no, that's like an attempt. But for me, that wasn't like a serious attempt.
It was a sign of apathy.
And so so I can't necessarily call that one of the attempts. I don't know how deep we can go onto this stuff, but the second time, it was a couple months later, and I was high, and I put a gun to my head, and I didn't load it correctly because I was super high, and I pulled the trigger, but it wasn't cocked, nothing, and it didn't go off, and I threw up immediately afterwards because I was like. It was like a split second decision too. It wasn't like I was planning it. I just remembered I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. And then I did that. And then thinking about it's bringing back the same feelings right now, actually, the anxiety from that. But like that was such a terrifying thing, realizing how bad things were to the point where I thought that was a good decision, but then also realizing like how close I was to not being here.
That was, if you say the first one wasn't a legitimate attempt,
So that's why,
that was
like,
truly a legitimate
that was a
attempt.
legitimate attempt. And then the last time was the one right before I got clean.
Talk to me about, I'm curious about that moment. I mean, you said you pulled the trigger and then you threw up immediately.
Yeah, because the
What was-
anxiety from that, it's adrenaline, right? So like even right now, just bringing back the same sort of feelings, because that was such a, it's a surreal experience. There's like this feeling of relief afterwards where, because I think I wanted to, but I didn't want to, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to feel the way I was feeling anymore. And that was the best solution at the time. And then afterwards, just the adrenaline from that situation, because it was so quick. It wasn't like slowly it literally grabbed it, pulled the trigger. And I hadn't cocked it back all the way either, which is the only reason that it didn't go off. I thought I had. And the throwing up immediately was, I mean, I was also really high too, so that was part of it. But like the adrenaline from that, it's immediately like your body just like freaks out. And then mentally, I remember after that, I just sat and cried for like hours, because I'd realized how bad things had gotten, but I hadn't really even fully accepted it. Even at the time, I didn't really fully accept it because I was just so like high all the time that like you can't process information, you don't retain information, and like you're not able to like actually understand your thoughts and feelings.
And you said that you realized how bad it had gotten, but clearly you didn't have a solution.
No, rock
still.
bottom keeps getting lower.
Because you try again.
Yeah, I did.
Point.
And so there's like, yeah, it's just like that feeling of relief and realizing like, okay, I have another chance to like try and figure this out.
Yeah.
And I kept failing. I could not stay clean. I say that I didn't really like try to stop using, or I didn't get clean, because I didn't. I would stop using for a little bit. I'd run out. I'd tell myself I'm done. I'm not going to go pick up anymore. And then I'd go through withdrawals again. I'm like, I don't want to do this. And I had this pride that I didn't want to ask for help. Because if the second I asked someone for help, that's me admitting that I have a drug problem. And I didn't have a drug problem. I convinced myself I did not have a drug problem.
Denial is
I was
strong
dealing
force.
with a lot of depression, obviously. I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, all of which was drug induced. I had prescriptions for like Xanax and all this stuff because I'd have panic attacks. And I would convince myself that all of these things I'm just using because I have all these underlying problems. Like I'm using drugs because of this. My back's in a lot of pain, and I have to use heroin because I can't get pills. I'm having anxiety attacks, so I have to take Xanax to deal with the anxiety attacks. Like all of these things, I just kept justifying and justifying and justifying. And so, like that was one of the things that always kept drawing me back too, because I'm like, well, if I stop, then I'm going to be in pain. I'm going to have to deal with all this stuff, and I don't want to deal with that stuff. And then my ex and I split up. I was homeless. I didn't have anywhere to live. I had my car. And, my parents were like, you can't stay here if you're using drugs. And I'm like, I'm not using drugs.
It's not a secret at this point.
No,
well,
no one
you still think
knew.
it is.
I still think it's a secret, but like, no, everyone knew it was
Yeah.
everyone knew what was going on. And I had an appointment that I had to get to, and I needed to go pick up on the way because I didn't want to go to the appointment. It was a doctor's appointment. I was going to go see a pain specialist because I was still in a lot of pain, but I'm like, well, if I get prescriptions again, then it'll be different, right? And I was going to see a pain specialist, but on the way to go see the pain specialist, I had to go pick up heroin because I was going through withdrawals, and I can't go to the pain specialist like in withdrawals. And my ex and I split up. Like everything was gone. Like I was gonna lose my job because I wasn't showing up to work. I would call out with like American with Disability Act. You'd say, hey, I'm calling out ADA, because I had being diagnosed with anxiety, being diagnosed with like depression. And those were covered under that same deal. So I could call out and say ADA, and then I wouldn't get dinged for it. And I could call out as many times as I possibly could, and I couldn't lose my job. It was illegal for them to fire me. I was working at a call center for like a Comcast, the cable company. I was call center. I would fall asleep. I would nod off on my desk on the phone with customers.
And you had this escape routes where you couldn't get
yeah,
fired
and so if I was going through withdrawals or whatever, then I would just call out and say ADA, and I was covered. And so I had like almost no money, like no money whatsoever. It was tax time because it was April of 2015. It was right before tax time, actually. It was March of 2015. And I had just bought what I thought was Xanax from a drug dealer that was not Xanax. He had scammed me, so it was fake. And so I'm having a panic attack while I'm driving, and I was also going through withdrawals. And then I just said, fuck it, like I'm done. And so I closed my eyes and I let go on the steering wheel and stepped on the gas.
You're just hearing the engine revving up with closed eyes.
I don't remember exactly that part of it. I was sobbing, crying, because like everything had fallen apart, and I was like, "There's nothing left. Like, there's really nothing left after this. I'm alone. I'm single. I don't have a girlfriend anymore. I don't have a place to live. I'm gonna lose my job." And because they were catching on at that point, right? And then it was a split-second decision as well, where I was like, I'm done. This is it. And so I closed my eyes, let go on the steering wheel, stepped on the gas, and then ran right into a telephone pole.
Oh, boy.
Here's the fucking problem.
You're still here? But what happened, man?
I didn't take my seatbelt off. And which thinking now, I'm glad that happened, right?
Well,
so instead, I was just in a
save lives, right?
fuckload of pain afterwards, obviously, because I hit the telephone pole. I think it was like 60 miles an hour. Telephone pole exploded, fell on the car, and then I like rolled out of the car, and I was like laying on the ground because my ribs, like just the seatbelt and then the impact, and I hit my head on the steering wheel, which was, I think it was like after I hit my head on the steering wheel, because I don't remember like exactly that, but I just remember there was a big gash on my forehead, and the steering wheel was fucked up. But like the seatbelt stopped me from going any further than that, I think, because it was so quick that I think the seatbelt hit, but it took a second for it to like really stop me. And then I just like rolled over and like laid on the ground in the middle of the road until someone showed up, and an ambulance showed up, and they took me to the emergency room, and I think it was my dad. My dad was there, and I just remember him looking at me, and he's like, "Are you done?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Are you done?
Yeah. He's like, "Are you done?"
Well, that was his words.
Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm done." But then I wasn't. Like, it was about another month after the accident. It was about I call it an accident. I called it an accident for a long time because I didn't want anyone to know that that's what I was trying to do. I remember saying, "Oh, I was swerving to miss a deer," because it didn't work, and I was like, "Fuck!" Like I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm swerving to miss a deer," and then I found out later they're like, "There's no skid marks. There's nothing." Like clearly that's not what happened.
But you said you were done.
Yeah, I was like, there was not, like I was done using. I was done living the way I was living, but I still didn't know how to stop. Like I was still getting high, and my parents had let me stay at their house, and they said under one condition, you go see a drug and alcohol counselor. And so I went to the drug and alcohol counselor, and I lied my ass off. Yeah. I didn't tell anyone I was using heroin. I was like, "Oh, I just have these back problems. I was taking pain pills and all this kind of stuff." And I still, even to the day I went into treatment, I was like, "I just need a detox."
Right.
Like I don't need
detox, a light detox.
I just need I just need to get off the drugs. I'm like, the problem is the drugs. I just need to get off the drugs. And and they came back and they were like the assessment was I need to go to inpatient treatment. And I was like, "No, I don't need to go. I just need a detox. I don't need 30 days in a treatment center. I'm not a drug addict. I'm not shooting up," because I was not shooting up. I was like, drug addicts that shoot up go to treatment centers. And I went into treatment. It was April 2nd of 2015. and I went with 2 pairs of shorts, a couple pairs of shirts, and some socks, and a few pairs of underwear.
He was like, this is an in
I'm
and
like,
out deal.
I'm just need to be here for
Yeah.
a week to
A little
detox.
detox.
And after I went through I went to treatment sober too, which I found out that most people their first day in treatment, they're not sober. They're high their first day. But I had ran out of drugs the night before, and my parents were taking me to treatment. So I didn't have a car. My car was totaled, and I didn't have any money, and I didn't have any drugs. I ran out of drugs and went to treatment. The morning of treatment, I was completely sober. Full blown withdrawals. I'm sweating. I'm like nauseous, and I go in there and they drug test me, and I lied before they did the drug test. They're like, "What drugs are you on?" I was like, "Just pills."
Yeah.
And it came back with everything. They're like, "Okay." I was like, they make you get up, like go to the like the meetings and the groups and stuff, like even if you're in withdrawals. And it was miserable. I'm like, I don't want to be here. I'm nauseous. I can't eat. I just want to be high. And like I was having panic attacks, and it was just this horrible experience for the first like 3 or 4 days. And
Can I ask
then
you something?
yeah.
In the group, because now, although it's a horrible scenario to be in, there's also a lot of sharing going on, right? And people are putting words to their experiences and their pains. Is there a point when you start like relating to what's being said there in that space?
Yeah, I think it was about day 3 or 4, because like those first couple of days, you're not thinking of anything. You're just, I want to be high. I don't want to feel like this. You're going through withdrawals, and then when the withdrawals started to subside, and I was starting to feel like a normal, right? For the first time in probably 4 years, like I was not altered, which was a really weird experience. And then I start listening to all these people's stories, because I even lied to everyone when I was in there. I was like, I didn't have a drug problem. I was like, I was taking pain pills for back pain.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh my God, you don't need to be here. And then I would hear everyone else's stories, and there was people who were addicted to drugs that did less than me, and they're in treatment. There's people obviously who did way worse things. And I realized like this idea that I had for what a drug addict was so wrong. I'm thinking like a junkie who shoots up on the side of the street, which would have been me, if it didn't stop when it did. Because that's how it works. Everyone's story starts around the same. Like some people's stories started with, they smoked weed and then they tried this. A lot of people who get addicted to opiates, their story started very similar to mine. They were prescribed pain medication, and then it just went from there.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing everyone's stories, and I'm like, oh my God, like how everyone felt, not just like how they took drugs or whatever it was. It was always about like how they felt, what they were thinking, what they, the things that they were struggling with, and like how it began, obviously. But they were very adamant about not glamorizing it, adamant about not telling war stories, like all of these things, but just talk about how they felt in these periods of time. And that first, I'd say, the second part of that first week, I'm listening to everyone, and that's when I started sharing. I was like, oh my God, like this is what I've been feeling like my whole life. I always felt like I didn't fit. I always felt like something was completely off, and the only time that I didn't feel like that is when I was using drugs. And I learned, because there's the group meetings where you have to do all of these things, and you have to write this stuff out, and they ask your family to mail you letters. So my mom and my dad wrote me a letter. My ex-fiance wrote me a letter about like, why I started, like thinking about why I started using drugs and all of these things. Because my parents were in contact with her still, because, we were together for a long time. So there was a lot of overlap there. And then I started to kind of like feel like I was home. And I remember like it was probably like the second day where I was done with withdrawals. It was that first week still. I called my mom and I said, hey, I'm going to need you to bring me some clothes.
This isn't just a detox.
This isn't just detox. I'm going to stay. It's going to be, it's 30 days or 29 days of inpatient. I was like, I need all my clothes. If you could just bring me all my clothes and a carton of cigarettes.
Yeah, just to...
Because when you got no drugs, they can't have caffeine in treatment either. So all there is nicotine. And that, started me smoking for a couple of years, and I ended up quitting, obviously. But I think I smoked like 4 cartons of cigarettes while I was in treatment.
But this is a pivotal moment here, because beyond finding place of belonging, and others that you have similar stories to. You mentioned from childhood you didn't have that feeling.
Yeah.
Now you have it.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, also getting beyond that denial, which has
Yeah.
been
It's the
such a
first
strong
step.
force.
You know?
And the first step,
Yeah.
yeah, you mentioned steps because I guess this is, you go through a 12-step program
Yes.
in that, right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about those. I won't expect you to remember all of them. I'm just going to paraphrase some of them,
Yeah.
right? The first one, admitting powerlessness, belief in help beyond yourself, deciding to change, taking a moral inventory, admitting wrongs, become ready for change, ask for help to change, list those harmed, make amends, continue self reflection, grow spiritually, help others, and maintain recovery.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like going through those different steps, and which one of those really stick out as the hardest ones?
Well, when it comes to the steps, you do a very, very short version in treatment, right? Because you can't do like the ninth step
Mm,
when you're just getting clean. You
which is
can't
making
go.
amends.
You can't make amends to people like 20 days after you get clean, right? You know, I robbed people.
Mm,
You can't go up say I'm sorry, right?
mm,
And so, but we did a short round of steps where you like sort of kind of understand like the first step and the second step are the ones you usually go through in treatment. Admitting we were powerless over
yes.
drugs. I realized I was powerless over drugs. Two, like I couldn't stay clean, obviously. So, you know, admitting to ourselves and others, it was,
I think
say it
it's
again. It was
belief in a
belief in a higher power,
yeah,
a power greater than ourselves.
yeah.
And I was very adamant about like, I don't know God stuff, but like I realized that a power greater than myself, technically drugs were a power greater than myself.
Mm,
Right. And
mm,
so like being able to give that to the universe and saying like, I can't do this. I need help, whatever that help may be. It was difficult at first, but I think those first couple of steps were really easy to go through because there's nothing. You're just a empty shell of a person at this point, and so you have this opportunity where you get to rebuild yourself from nothing,
mm,
and that was really cool, but also like my entire life up until that point changed immediately. Like I went from thinking about like, okay, well, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. I didn't expect to make it much longer. Like I'm like, I didn't expect to make it as far as I have. Right. But like, you know, I was 22. I'm like, there's no way I'm making it past 25. Like I'm not going to be here, whether it's from the drugs or my own doing. Cause you know, it was something that I had considered multiple times and thought about multiple times, like how I would do it and all that kind of stuff. And obviously didn't do it the ways I thought I was going to, but like, and everything changed so drastically after I went to treatment. And so going through those steps it was very difficult for some of those, but like some of them, it was so freeing.
mm,
That second one, like the first and the second one in general is like, you're trying to control this thing that you have zero control over and admitting that you're like, I can't do it. And that's such a hard thing to do. I mean, especially as like men too, we're like, well, we're going to figure it out. I'll find a solution. Right. And then being able to just give that up and say, I can't do it. I
mm.
cannot stay clean myself.
Or I cannot change myself.
Yeah.
Is that also something you can see in like clients they have? Because that's also I mean, it's a different context.
Oh,
right?
but it's
still taking a step.
very, very similar. I think that because a lot of people struggle with food addiction, right? I think in some ways that's so much harder to manage than drug addiction. Because drug addiction, the only way to stop doing drugs is just abstinence from drugs. You don't do any drugs, no alcohol. You can't do that with food. You have to figure out, because that's something with drugs is like, well, I'll figure out how to manage my addiction. I'll only use this much. Like I'll make sure that I don't do more than this or whatever, right? With food, that's what unfortunately, if you're trying to lose weight, you have to do that. And so you're in this situation where, you know, you are powerless over this food.
Mm,
Like a lot of people struggle with that, and you can't abstain from food. You need it to survive. And so it's something that a lot of people struggle with. I'm so sympathetic for that because granted it's different neural pathways, obviously. The way drugs affect you physically are way different than food does, but very similar in terms of like the way you become like mentally like addicted to something.
Right.
You don't have the physical symptoms, but like that same, because I've a lot of my clients who have food addiction or eating disorders have mentioned very similar feelings that I felt.
Things that you can remember.
They just
feeling.
used food,
Right.
and whereas I used drugs. And so being able to have those same conversations with clients and be like, hey, you know what? Like, you are powerless over this. Like, you've gotten to this point because you are completely powerless over this. Okay. And then the second step for food addiction, I don't think is the same as for drug addiction, but realizing that, like, hey, you can't, you know what? You can't do this yourself. But guess what? You have help. You have people that can help you. You have me. You have different support groups. There's all of these things that you can do, you know, to help you through this part of your life where you're trying to figure out how to, you know, work on this addiction that you have.
So this is a life-changing moment for you, which I guess starts putting things on an upward trajectory.
Yeah.
Again, you go through rehab, you're going through the steps. There's I'm sure a phase after funneling you out of this, but which positive elements do you start stacking into your life from that point?
There was a lot. I mean, you know, when you leave treatment, they have this thing where you say you go 90 meetings in 90 days. And I moved into an Oxford house, which is sober living basically. And all of my friends were people in recovery. All of them were going to meetings. I was surrounded by people who were just like me, but clean. And then I'd go to meetings and I'd start working on those steps, right? And so, like, the fourth step of that, making a searching and fearless moral inventory, is where I had to go look back at every aspect in my life and analyze it from the time I was aware, like self-aware, like 10 years old, obviously, probably before that, but drugs kind of screw with the memory a little bit, to now, and take a real look at, like, myself as a human being and seeing all of those defects of character that I had. Like, and then again, as working through the steps, you get to a point where you're like, you know, you have this list of people you've harmed and became willing to make amends. And making amends looks different for so many different things, right? If I robbed someone, if I owe them money, you pay them back, right? If I stole someone's drugs, I can't really return that, right? You know, you just promise never to steal someone's drugs again, right? But, like, I started having to really look at myself as a person and start working on these defects of character where, you know, I'm reactionary. I'm very selfish, you know, something I still struggle with, obviously, not intentionally, but, you know, I'm thinking about myself quite a bit and, like, how just especially at that time, too, because I was single. Like, I was just thinking about myself, like, which is why the steps are really good, too, because, like, one of the steps is, like, you got to help other people. Like, you can't. That's one of the main things is, like, we keep what we have by giving it away. And I think there's so many parallels with that with coaching too, is like, it changed my life, and working the steps changed my life, getting a sponsor, all of these things, and things just started kind of improving. You know, I ended up quitting the job that I had. I managed to keep it through treatment, and then I got back, and then they like this law passed thing, and they're like, hey, you got to prove every one of those times you called out, you have to get a doctor's note. Could not do that. So they're like, you can either quit or you can get fired. I'm like, I'm going to quit. And, you know, and then I started working different jobs, you know, from people I knew in the program, like construction and all of these different things, where I just started learning more about, you know, the world and being an adult and managing money. And
But you mentioned something interesting before about the parallel between some of the steps and coaching is, and the end or some of the last steps is that you have to give back.
Yeah.
What was, finish that thought there?
We keep what we have by giving it away. So in the program, you have a sponsor, right? And your sponsor helps walk you through the steps because they've been through the steps. They help you walk through what they've been through. And with coaching, it was very similar. Like, I had a coach. My coach helped me lose 70 pounds, you know, and then I worked with him for a while, and I worked with him for a very long time. And then I realized, I'm like, hey, I have the ability to do this for other people. And it's interesting because that whole concept of we keep what we have by giving it away, in this conversation is where I really connected that parallel, because I haven't talked about the steps in a long time, right? It's been, I don't go to meetings anymore. I celebrate when I have another year clean, but, like,
so this was a moment where you kind of connected,
where I really connected that, because like there's so many parallels. The more we talk about it, the more I realize, I'm like, there's so many things that overlap here. And I firmly believe that everyone, regardless of the fact if you've done drugs or not, should work around the steps. Because if you have harmed people in your past, you know, you got to make amends for that, right? Or you got to like look at your defects of character and try to improve upon those. And we're forced to do it in the program. Otherwise, you know, the other option is not doing it, not improving, and then going back and using drugs again. But like that parallel of like we keep what we have by giving it away. The more I focus on my clients and the more I'm focused on coaching and learning and growing the business, but also like helping as many people as possible, it seems the better I am at doing that for myself. Sometimes I spend a little bit more time focusing on other people than my own stuff. But like, you know, as someone who, you know, obviously I got to being overweight because, you know, reasons or whatever, whether it was, you know, there's a lot of different reasons that could have happened. I firmly believe it was because my wife was pregnant. It was just sympathy weight, right?
Yeah.
But no, it was like I realized that the more time I spend trying to help my clients improve their lives, the more I realize there's certain things that I'm telling them that they should be doing that I'm like, hey, you know what? I should probably work on that as well. Like, hey, you should, you know, figure out how to fit all of these things into your schedule. Like, yes, you have a busy schedule, but you can figure out a way to fit meal prep, to fit this and this and this. And over the last year, I've become a lot busier than I used to. I got 2 kids, multiple businesses. I don't have the luxury of just cooking every meal when it's time to eat. And so I'm telling, you know, my clients, hey, you should prep your food two times a week.
A moment of self-reflection.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to do that. That's the thing. That's the reason I'm not eating. That's the reason I'm not reaching the goals that I want to reach. And so it's this thing where you get the benefit of being able to help someone, and it feels great, and it's such a cool experience. But also, it's that point of self-reflection.
Yeah, I mean, we're already kind of into it now, which is something I'd like to talk to you about, is helping others and being a form of guidance and a voice that they can relate to. I mean, we haven't gone into the start of that, but I mean, you grew an extremely large social media following across multiple platforms in the millions. And looking at that platform and some of the messages that you communicate, it's clear to me that for a lot of people, you are a voice that hears them, that sees some of the struggles that they're going through. And I'm curious, well, which type of how did you get to a point of being that voice?
On accident. I would say to be in that voice really came from, I wasn't really trying to be this like motivational person. I wasn't really trying to like, you know, save people's lives. I found like one of the things that kept me in such a negative spot for a long period of time was secrets, not sharing what I was feeling, sharing what I was thinking, sharing what I was going through. And after I got clean, that was something I got really good at doing, was just talking about my feelings, my emotions, the things I was struggling with. If I was dealing with depression, anxiety, stress, if I was thinking about using, if I was struggling with whatever. Our secrets keep us sick, right? And that was something that was instilled upon very early when I got clean, because the people who keep secrets end up relapsing, because secrets are something that you're hiding, and where are you hiding it? And then it grows. And so because of working the steps and because of being, you know, in the program for such a long period of time, I got so like good at maybe oversharing. Like I wouldn't be quiet about anything. If I was thinking about something, if I was struggling with something, I would talk to anyone and everyone about it. I remember just being like having a random conversation with people and like just talk about, I'm like, yeah, you know, I was struggling with this. And they just look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, what? You just met me. And I'm like, whatever, right? But I also remember there were so many times where I've had those conversations with people. They're like, oh my God, like, thank you for telling me that. Like, I'm struggling with this stuff right now, and I feel like I'm the only one. And then all of a sudden, this random person who I've never met in my entire life is telling me about, you know, the times where he was thinking about killing himself, and like me being able to like understand that, like, hey, you know, there's ideation, there's actual attempts, like there's all of these different things. And it's like, even if like he was able to go get help, he's like, I mean, I hopefully he did, but like I remember ending that conversation. He goes, I'm going to call someone. I'm going to talk to someone about this. And I like, it was something that it just got to the point where I was like, I'm not going to hide anything anymore. I'm just going to be open and honest about everything. My wife wasn't a huge fan of it, obviously. My wife and I met, obviously, a couple years after I got clean, and we got married like 6 months after we got together. But with social media, when I first started on social media, I just filmed whatever. I filmed what I was thinking, what I wanted to say. You know, obviously putting glitter and Christmas ornaments in my beard and stuff. But like when that started kind of growing, I remember getting on, like, because I would kick the door open and take videos in the mirror, right? Like no one else. I mean, it was pattern interruption, right? It was the hook for the video.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's what it was until way later.
But it
like,
worked.
But it worked, and that was my thing. Like I'd kick the door open and say some shit in the mirror. And I remember kicking the door open and saying some shit. I'm like talking about like depression, or talking about like my wife and I can't get pregnant. Like we don't know why it's not happening. Like no one was sharing the bad stuff on social media. Everyone was sharing all these great things that they were doing, these, you know, influencer culture at the time. You know, at TikTok, it was just dancing, you know, a bunch of teenagers dancing, right? But like, then you had these, you know, 25, 26-year-old dudes putting glitter in their beards. And it was very interesting time for social media, but no one was really open and honest about their struggles, their pain, their, you know, their worries, their, all of these things. And I was so open about it in, you know, everyday life that for me it was such a natural thing to just talk about it on social media. I talked about my addiction. I talked about being in recovery. I talked about my attempts. I talked about my depression, my anxiety. I talked about robbing people. I talked about being a, you know, not a great person when I was doing drugs. And I just basically, someone called it trauma dumping. I just trauma dumped on the internet. And so many people resonated with that. Like it was such a, what's the term? A refreshing experience for people to go on social media and realize that this person, because I grew from 0 to 1 million in like 44 days when I started. And then COVID hit and I gained 3 million in 2 weeks. And I was like 4.5 million followers like 5 months into social media.
Wow.
The most insane growth. That, I mean, obviously you had like the dancing people who gained a lot more. You know, it's very popular with the young kids, right?
Dancing in the streets, yeah.
But like at the time, I think I was like one of the fastest growing creators on TikTok, and like I was in the top 20 of follower count on the entire application. Like I was getting millions and tens of 20s of millions of views on these videos at a time. So in between me putting, you know, dresses on and turning these, you know, pair of sweatpants into a crop top and a skirt, and being overweight and, you know, funny hairy bearded guy, but I was also I think like incredibly relatable because all of a sudden this person on social media who has millions of followers struggles with the same things that everyone struggles with. They've had very similar experiences. They've struggled with addiction. They have issues with infertility. They're trying to get pregnant, and that's not happening. And that part, the infertility part, we found out she was pregnant like literally 2 weeks after one of the videos I made about that.
It has gone viral.
Which was crazy, right? But I think that a lot of people, there was no one else really doing that on social media, and I wasn't trying to be that guy. I just filmed in whatever I felt like filming.
And you set up the perfect storm. I mean, being one of the fastest growing accounts across TikTok as a platform, combined with what you mentioned before. I mean, you had lost 70 pounds with the coach, and
that didn't happen until later.
Oh yeah, and then okay.
Yeah, the first year on TikTok,
that was after.
Yeah, it was. I didn't start. I lost the weight after my daughter was born. So it was about 3 months after my daughter was born. I decided I was going to get in shape, and I lost 70 pounds in 6 months. That first year, I was the fat, funny, hairy, relatable bearded guy.
Okay, then what changed now?
Like from what? From then
also
to
in your presence, right? Because people got used to you had such growth being, as you mentioned, the fat, hairy, bearded guy.
Yeah.
Now suddenly you've lost weight. It's a different persona, I guess.
It was definitely an interesting transition. I mean, I remember making the video saying that I'm going to lose weight. I said I'm going to lose weight. So I put on a bunch of weight while my wife was pregnant. 3 months after my daughter was born, she was the same size she was before, and I was 70 pounds heavier. And my blood pressure was high. it was COVID, right? So I'd DoorDash food, wouldn't work out, drink 50 Bang energy drinks a day, and just put on a bunch of weight. And I was having blood pressure issues. I was breathing hard trying to go up the stairs. And so I was like, I made a video and I was like, I'm going to lose weight. Everyone's like, hell yeah. awesome. We're like, that's great. Let's follow along for the journey. Because that first year, I had millions of people following along with my wife's pregnancy. I did videos every week. My daughter's the size of a grapefruit. My daughter's the size of a watermelon. Like, they named my child Baby Sanctuary before she was born, right? It was a very insane time. I had a PO box, and people would send all kinds of stuff for the baby, and
Wow.
a baby registry. They're like, no, make a baby registry. I'm like, I don't need a baby registry. Jessica Alba sent us diapers. It was a crazy experience. And so people were they weren't just invested in the content. People were like, I think, borderline obsessed with our lives. I had people follow me around at grocery stores. It was a very weird time, right? And so I was like, I'm going to lose weight. And everyone's like on board. They're like, hell yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And then I did a couple updates, over the course of like a couple of months, like probably 2 months, where people were like, oh, wow, he's actually losing some weight. And then from January of 2021 to April of 2021 is when I lost, I think it was like 40 pounds. It was like 10 pounds a month. And I got shredded because I ended up competing. I did 2 shows. I did okay at the first one, but the second one I got first and second place. Right. So I did a couple classes. And then immediately everyone's like, hey, fuck you, you're not relatable anymore. And I was like,
you lost them.
I'm like, I told you I was going to do a thing.
Yeah.
You guys were all supportive of it. And then I did the thing, and all of a sudden we're like, well, you're not relatable anymore. And I'm like, I'm not relatable. Why? Like, because I don't look like I did. That was a really hard. I definitely got quite a bit of an ego from that too, because all of a sudden I'm shredded. I have 6-pack abs, and then I rebounded after the show and put on a bunch of weight again, right? And that took a while for me to kind of balance that out. But it definitely changed, like, what the focus of my content was. Especially after like having a kid too. Like, I couldn't just spend 4 hours putting rubber ducks all over my house, or putting like all of these things that I did when my wife was pregnant. I filled my entire house with like 5,000 rubber ducks. Crazy year on social media, right? I got a rubber duck tattoo because of that. But and at this point, I had reached 5 million followers on TikTok. I got verified. It was like this whole ordeal, and then from that, like, I shifted into doing more fitness stuff. And that first competition is really when during that prep is like when my connection with like mental health and fitness and really kind of connected together.
And is this also the same time getting into online coaching?
No, actually, that didn't start until about a year later.
Okay.
This is when I started my clothing brand. I made a joke during that prep. I was like, I lift weights because it makes the sad voices go away, which turned into the clothing brand a little bit later. But and so a lot of the my content would be still some of the funny stuff that I would do, but it was very different because when you have a kid, everything changes.
Yes,
You don't have the same, like, you spend a lot more time not sleeping. So like, that was a thing, right? My daughter was colic, so way less sleep. It's hard to make videos during the day if, your child's screaming and stuff. And also, like, you're anxious because you're like, well, make sure my child's okay. So I would make a lot of fitness content about like mental health and like how, like, my own stuff that I was struggling with, and how like going to the gym helped with that, or like just funny fitness stuff, and just whatever I thought was funny. I'd just make videos on the fly. And then it was after I did another show about a year later, and it was after that it was 3 shows actually. I did 3 shows back to back. And it was after that someone was like, hey, can you coach me? I'm like, what? I'm like, I have a coach. I'm like, you can work with him. They're like, no, I want you to coach me. I'm like, I don't even know how to coach. And they were like, just coach me. And I was like, okay, I've never coached anyone before, but yeah, I mean, I had like way back in the day, but it was pretty much just a regurgitation of what my coach had me do, and it worked for them. But because I didn't have any like knowledge, and I realized that over the course of multiple years of competing, working with a coach, learning from him, that I actually had gained a significant amount of knowledge, anecdotal, but also like, just through studying. I learned how the body works more. I learned about biology, kinesiology. I had, a lot more free time to like learn and try to understand things, because that was something that I always wanted to do. I'd be very analytical. Like, why am I thinking this way? Why am I feeling this way? Before, to like, why is my body reacting this way? Why is this happening? How does this happen? Because if I can understand it, then I can apply it. It was, I mean, you can pretty much kind of get your body to do whatever you want it to do if you give it the right input.
Understand the mechanism.
And so I started coaching, and I coached this guy, and he was losing weight, and he kept losing weight, and he kept losing weight, and he would ask me questions, and I would know the answer to all of them, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? Maybe I am relatively good at this, and then I had another client. He's like, I want you to coach me for a show, and I'd never prep coached anyone before, and I'm like, this is an undertaking. I'm like, I'm going to figure it out. And so I started coaching him, and he ended up winning the overall at his show. And I was like, oh,
so this is really the start.
This is something that it was such a cool experience going, hey, do this, do what I say. And then it worked.
So tell me about when you truly like landed in your coaching philosophy and what you communicate.
I think it was around that same time, because during the time I was prepping, his name's Steven, for his show, people saw I would post about his transformation so far, and people started reaching out. They're like, hey, like, coach me. And I'm like, okay. And so I tried to figure out how to run this, piece together coaching platform that I built with spreadsheets and, check-in forms. And I had already sort of combined mental health and fitness with the clothing brand at that point. It was fighting mental illness one rep at a time. And so that concept of one rep at a time, it was very easy for me to move that into the coaching part, because I was already part of the clothing, right? It was all one, synergistic system. And I talked so much about mental health and how mental health affects your fitness, whether it's from both sides, right? If your mental health is in a bad spot, it's going to affect your ability to meal prep, affect your ability to go to the gym, affect your ability to execute the plan. And then the same side of the other side, like if you're not training the way you need to, if you're not prepping, if you're not doing these things, it will negatively affect your mental health, right? And so it's like trying to find the balance between those two is like, okay, is it happening from this or is it happening from that? And I figured that a lot with myself, but like as I'm working with these other clients, they're like, I just can't. It was a really tough week. And then like you get into like, why was it a tough week? What were you struggling with? Well, I didn't feel like doing this, or I had this happen, I did this, and but I went to the gym this one day and I felt a lot better. And it's like, okay, well, let's find what's the connection here, right? Okay, you're struggling with this stuff, but you managed to be able to do it on this day, and you felt way better on this day. So like, maybe let's try and figure out a way to just say, okay, even if we can't do 100%, let's just do 1%, right? And that's like that concept of one rep at a time is like these little decisions that you make will compound. Even if it's just 1% every day, it's still better than 0%.
For sure.
And then it compounds, right? Like the more you do something, the better you feel, the more confidence you have that it's going to continue to make you feel better. It builds on itself, right? You have this, all of this evidence that if I go to the gym, I'm going to feel better. And so you go to the gym, you feel better. You don't go to the gym, you don't feel better. And as that builds, you end up building more and more like of an ability to work through these things. And for me, the gym was always this place where I could everything was quiet. I mean, it wasn't quiet. Like I'm blasting music in my ears, right? But inside of my head doesn't ever stop.
The voices that you mentioned.
Yeah, the voices, right? So it's like, it's just sometimes sad voices, right? Sometimes there's a constant inner dialogue. I'm always thinking about things and analyzing, and gets to a point sometimes where it drives me insane. And so, and I overthink a lot, intrusive thoughts. Like I'll play tapes out in my head and like, oh, what if this, what if that? A lot of worry and anxiety, especially after having kids. I'm constantly in a state of like a little bit of an anxiety. It's like, all right, hopefully I don't mess them up. Right. Like, but, and when those 2 hours in the gym or however long in the gym, it was just quiet. There wasn't thinking about anything else. I wasn't on my phone. I wasn't scrolling on social media. I wasn't stressing about this. It was just quiet. And being able to have someone who had not experienced that before, which is one of these clients that I was working with, had never gone to the gym before their entire life. They had never stepped foot in a gym. And I helped them go to the gym for the first time. Huge anxiety for them is going to the gym for the first time. We just walked through like, okay, all you're going to do is go in there and do this. You don't have to worry about learning all the machines or the equipment. And it took like 2 months to get to the point where this person was actually like lifting weights. Yeah. And then it started working for them. And they were like all of these things that I was stressing about throughout the entire day. I wasn't stressing about them for 2 hours. Like those problems are still there, right? You're still going to have these things you have to figure out after you're done. You get this reprieve from it for a little bit.
Which is
And
proof of concept of what you had on your clothing
exactly.
brand
And
already.
it was such a cool thing to show someone that this works that way, that I was able to do it for someone else and someone else and someone else. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm literally just going to show people that this can change their entire lives. And it was around that same time that, you know, Lenus had reached out and they're like, hey, we see, you know, you have a lot of potential as a coach. Let's, you know, see what you can do. And at the time I was like, oh, I got it. I'm fine. You know, I know what I'm doing. I'm losing client information and check-in stuff.
All
And,
that kind of stuff.
but it was like, it wasn't even something I had ever considered doing. I'm like, well, I don't want to coach people. I didn't want, because I had personal trained before.
Mhm.
Like I had personal trained a few clients back when I was like 19. But I didn't want the gym to be this thing that was like, so I never really made gym content. I made fitness, like funny fitness content, but I didn't film my lifts and all that kind of stuff. Cause I didn't want, like, it was for me, right? I didn't want it to be something that I turned into social media.
But you found a beautiful intersection between training and I guess you can say also a holistic approach with the whole mental well-being space, which really amplified the growth of your business. I mean, and you've created a lot of change in that process, and particularly focusing on mental well-being, men's mental well-being. I'd like to ask you, what do you see, or what do you think that the fitness industry or the industry as a whole is kind of misunderstanding or missing out on in dealing with mental well-being, and particularly potentially for men, who is also a large part of your audience?
Yeah, I mean, actually have a larger female audience than
Oh
I
yeah.
do men. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but on the coaching side, it's
Yeah.
definitely a lot more men
Yeah.
at this
Exactly.
point. But like, I would say the thing that is missing the most is just people starting conversations about what they're going through. Like when you think of the gym, right? Especially like bodybuilders, you're thinking these big tough guys who like can lift heavy weights and they're not struggling with stuff. They're not, you know, dealing with these problems. Or like, you know, people get to the point where they're like way less approachable, right? This huge muscle tattoo guy they see at the gym, like you're not going to go talk to that guy.
Mm.
You know, you're going to leave him alone. And especially if you're not inundated into the community, because like usually those guys are like the guys you want to talk to.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the nicest people, right? And I think I will say it's changed so significantly over the last like 3 or 4 years. At the time, no one was talking about what they're going through. Like there was never any conversations of that at the gym. There was no people were talking about struggling with addiction, struggling with suicidal ideation, struggling with mental health, anxiety. You know, it was this, oh, I need to be tough and big and I don't deal with problems, you know, like I'm fine, right? It was this always like I'm fine, right? And I think definitely over the last few years, it's shifted significantly. I would like to say that I played a pretty significant part in that.
I would say so.
Whether it's directly or indirectly, like if people see me doing it, then like, hey, I'm going to do the same thing. And it kind of dominoes, right? Or it's, hopefully this would happen. If not, I mean, regardless, like, you know, it's a positive shift in the community.
For sure.
But I think it can be better. I think a lot of people figuring out a way for people to realize that they can be open about those things. And I think that's like obviously with the coaching, but that's like where a lot of my clothing brand is focused on, is like if you're wearing my clothing brand, Iron Sanctuary, you know, clothing brand, its foundation is mental health. Its foundation is that concept of like being open about the stuff that you're struggling with, whether it's like directly or wearing the I lift weights because it makes the sad voices go away shirt. And that made a huge difference at the time. The original shirt, like I've from people, even just recently, from like some of the original designs that they were wearing at the gym, and someone came up to them and were like, "Hey, I love your shirt," like, you know, and then they start a conversation about like, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. It's like figuring out a way, and you know, this my goal and my dream obviously is to create this thing that basically is like a, hey, you can talk to me type of thing. Like the shirt that I'm wearing is telling whoever sees it that if they're struggling, then they can talk about it.
Right.
Like creating this experience for people where it doesn't matter, even if it's outside of the gym too, right? Like just this beacon that tells people that they're not alone, that they can talk about what they're struggling with, because the biggest killer is silence. That is what is, I think the statistics right now are 87% of of suicides are men.
Right.
This last year was 726,000 people, not just men, but 726,000 people. That's one every 40 seconds.
Right.
And it's even higher. And it's such a, like, last year I lost one of my really good friends. He actually had helped me with one of the designs that I had come up with. It was "fuck suicide," and it has the statistics on the back of the shirt with the phone number 988, which is the suicide hotline. And you know, a couple weeks after we had that conversation, he ended up taking his own life. And it's such a hard thing to process that and not lose hope, if that makes sense. Like, you know, the more I feel like more of a difference that I try to make, I unfortunately become more aware of the effects or the people that I was not able to help. You know, because I get a lot of comments and messages from people saying that, like, either my content or my brand or a video or just even people in my coaching that, like, thank you for what you do. Like, you saved my life. But at the same time, unfortunately, with the platform that I built, is I get a lot of people who are struggling that have sent me messages that are no longer here.
Right.
And so it's like I battle this concept of, like, am I actually making a difference? Am I helping people? And, like, why am I even trying at this point if it's not, you know, able to help people, or if, like, that's not the case, to, like, this overwhelming drive to, like, just change the fucking world.
Yeah.
Like,
But Kevin, you are making a difference. And I think that's very clear when we look at your clients and your message. Just lastly, to round this off, you were talking about dreams and aspirations. What do you hope for or aspire to target more of that amazing amount of energy that you have into in the future?
I would love to start my own nonprofit. You know, I work closely with a couple different organizations, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, National Association of Mental Illness, and, like, Nerd HQ. It's an organization that helps provide therapy to people who can't afford it. And I have this this dream to start, you know, be called the One Rep at a Time Foundation, and it's definitely heavily inundated with fitness, but also, like, I would love to do, like, outreach to recovery centers, like, you know, whether it's addiction to drugs or whatever it may be, or even mental health facilities, and you know, bring in experts to talk about the effects that fitness can have on your mental health. They can have the effects that fitness can have on your, you know, addiction, and just create these programs that can, like, maybe provide gym memberships to people who can't afford it. And, you know, you get out of treatment, you need something to do, right? You know, okay, why don't you go to the gym, learn how to train, you know, have this outlet that you can use. And, you know, that's like about as far as I've gotten. So, like, with what's possible, because it's hard to imagine, like, what's actually possible without seeing, you know, what that actually looks like. But, like, I mean, from that point, I would just kind of grow from there. I'd want to bring in as many experts and as many people as possible to just create this foundation that, one, is raising a significant amount of money for suicide prevention and mental health, but also, like, actively helping people and being the person who gets to decide where the money actually gets put. Because that's one thing, you know, with different organizations, you don't necessarily get to decide where that money goes, but, like, being able to know for a fact that the money that I'm raising and donating myself is making a difference. You know, I want to, like I said, I want to change the world. I want to leave a legacy behind. I don't, like, you know, in 100 years, you can still see, like, the name Iron Sanctuary being utilized, whether it's through the foundation or just, you know, I want to leave a legacy.
And I have absolutely no doubt that you have all the abilities to build whatever you want to and leave a legacy, one rep at a time.
One rep at a time.
Thank you very much for
Absolutely.
joining us and sharing your story.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to share it.
Welcome to the walk path.
All right.
Not
thank you.
unfamiliar to you, but what
Nope.
we're going to do is keep this a bit on brand for you as well. So I
Okay.
want you to rank on a scale from 1 to 10 these elements' impact on people's mental well-being.
Okay.
That makes sense. All right. So the first one will be a healthy, balanced diet.
6.
6.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's subjective, really. I think a healthy, balanced diet will affect your mental health positively, but I think in terms of like other things, there's definitely more.
All right. How about resistance training?
9.
9.
Yeah.
It's up there.
Yeah.
1 rep at a time.
1 rep at a time.
Because it makes the sad voices go away. Or do you have anything to add?
I mean, there's a lot of reasons why, obviously, one of which is being able to work towards a goal. I mean, you're physically breaking yourself down and building yourself up, which is like how you build resistance to things.
Yes.
And then on top of it is like, it's just further proof to yourself that you can do hard things. And the more hard things that you can do, the more hard things you can do.
The more you can overcome.
Yeah.
Last one, community.
10.
10?
Yes. Actually, probably say 11.
Yeah,
11 on
okay.
that one. Yeah.
It's a big one. Why?
Yeah. Well, because if you have a community of people that are struggling with similar things, or like especially in a situation where you're struggling with something and you feel like you're the only one, and you talk about it, then the odds are that someone else in that community can say, "Hey, you know what? I dealt with that same thing. This is what I did to get through it." And then it just kind of builds on itself. You know, you have all these people who come from whatever the community is, come from different walks of life, that have the ability to help other people through the things they're struggling with. I think community is the most important thing that you can do for your mental health, because that community can also give you suggestions on other things you can do to improve your mental health.
All right, let's flip this up a bit. No more ranking.
All right.
Just a couple of questions.
Okay.
What is a hidden talent that you have that you don't show a lot on your social media?
I have 2 of them.
All right, hit me.
I can juggle.
Really? Two,
3.
3 or 4?
3.
3 balls? Okay.
Yeah. And I can wiggle my ears.
Let's see, we'll get a zoom in on that one.
Yeah.
And lastly, what is that one song that gets you fired up at the gym these days?
There's a couple of them. The one song these days, I think would be Prequel by Falling in Reverse.
Okay.
But my go-to forever and ever will always be Bat Country by Avenged Sevenfold.
Bat Country?
Yep.
There we go.
Bat Country.
I'll have to put that one on next time.
Have you ever seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
Yeah.
So we're in Bat Country now.
Ah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the he who makes a beast of himself gets rid of the pain of being a man. That's the beginning part of that song, and it comes from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Coined it. I'll put it on next time I'm in the gym.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Absolutely.
For our session on the walk path.
Yeah. Thank you.